Picture this. You just spent 20 minutes packing last night's dinner into glass containers. You're being responsible. You're saving cash, cutting down on waste, doing all the right things. But what if I told you that same habit, the one you do without a second thought, is quietly setting the stage for one of the most aggressive, silent cancers we know? Sounds dramatic, I know, but stay with me, because the science behind what actually happens inside your leftovers the second time they hit the heat is something almost nobody talks about. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 5 everyday foods that turn into something completely different when you zap them, nuke them, or crisp them back up. I'll explain exactly what they become, why your pancreas is uniquely vulnerable to that shift, and why that connection matters more than you realize. I've spent years in clinical practice watching patients sit across from me with a diagnosis they never saw coming, asking the exact same question: could I have done something differently? The answer is usually yes, and it starts in your kitchen. Before we dive in, you need to know one brutal truth about the pancreas. It doesn't complain, it doesn't take when it's struggling, it doesn't send you a memo while damage slowly stacks up over months or years of routine choices. By the time symptoms actually force you to a clinic, the disease has often already moved past the window, where we can do much about it. That's why the 5-year survival rate's stubbornly low, but knowledge changes the game. And chances are, at least 2 of the foods I'm about to cover are sitting in your fridge right now, waiting to be heated up for dinner. Let's start with the one that's going to catch you off guard. Think about that takeout container of crispy fries, or those breaded tenders you carefully wrapped up because tossing them felt wasteful. Next day rolls around, and you probably slide them into the microwave or drop them into a hot pan to get that crunch back. The moment you do that, you're triggering a chemical chain reaction your body isn't built to handle. Here's the part most people skip. The oils we use every day, sunflower, canola, soybean, even some light olive blends, are chemically fragile. They're packed with fats that break down quickly when exposed to heat once. Eat them a second time, and you're essentially watching those fats oxidize on a molecular level. That breakdown releases a group of volatile compounds called aldehydes. You don't need to memorize the chemical names, just picture them as microscopic shrapnel. When you eat them, they scatter through your system, bouncing off cell membranes and scrambling the delicate instructions inside your DNA. DNA tells your cells when to grow, when to pause, and when to self-destruct. When that code gets corrupted repeatedly, cells forget the rules. They start copying themselves out of control. That's the seed of cancer. And your pancreas? It's sitting right in the blast zone. When aldehydes hit your bloodstream, your immune system goes on high alert, flooding the area with inflammatory signals to clean up the mess. But if you're reheating fried leftovers 3-4 times a week, that alarm never shuts off. A pancreas stuck in constant inflammation is like a watchmaker trying to assemble delicate gears during an earthquake. It can't do its job. It can't regulate enzymes or process nutrients properly. Eventually, the wear and tear catches up, and you don't get a warning siren, you just get a scan that changes everything. Quick question for you. How many times this week did you reheat something that was originally fried? Drop that number in the comments. I want you to actually track it. So what's the workaround? Keep it simple. Never reintroduce oil to already fried leftovers. If you want them crispy again, use an oven or an air fryer. Dry heat restores the texture without pouring fresh fuel on the oxidative fire. And treat frying oil like a single-use item. Cook once, discard it. The math is brutally straightforward. A few dollars in oil isn't worth trading away your organ health. Now brace yourself, because number 2 is something you've probably been told to eat more of your entire adult life. I'm talking about spinach, kale, chard, even those nice mixes. You make a big batch on Sunday, feel great about it, pack it into containers, and pull one out for lunch on Tuesday. You nuke it for a minute, it looks identical, tastes identical, and you move on with your day. But underneath that familiar green color, a quiet chemical swap is happening. Leafy vegetables naturally store nitrates from the soil. In their raw or freshly cooked state, those nitrates are completely fine. Some even convert to compounds that support healthy blood flow. The problem starts when you cook them, let them sit, and then apply heat again. During that cooling period, harmless bacteria naturally present in the greens begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. Then the microwave or stovetop heat steps in and pushes those nitrites to bond with proteins, creating a class of compounds called nitrosamines. You've heard of them before. Major health agencies have flagged them for decades because they don't just irritate your system, they slip straight into the nucleus of your cells and start editing your genetic code. Think of your DNA like an architectural master plan for a house. Nitrosamines are like someone sneaking into the drafting room and redrawing load-bearing walls without telling anyone. Your cellular repair crews catch most of the mistakes, sure, but over months and years of repeated reheating, the errors stack up and your pancreas, constantly filtering and metabolizing what you eat, ends up bathed in these altered compounds. It's a slow, silent stress test that the organ isn't designed to pass indefinitely. Be honest with yourself for a second. How often do you batch cook your greens and reheat them later? Most of us do it thinking we're being efficient. The irony is that the very habit meant to keep us healthy might be working against us. The solution is actually pretty refreshing. Stop heating them a second time. Toss cold cooked spinach into a wrap, layer it over quinoa, or chop it into a salad. All the vitamins, minerals, and fiber stay intact, and the nitrosamine pathway never gets triggered. If you absolutely need them warm, cook exactly what you'll eat in that sitting. Batch cooking is great, but with leafy greens, it's a one-and-done situation. And if you do save some, reheat it exactly once. Every extra cycle multiplies the chemical risk. It's not fear-mongering. It's basic food chemistry. Now number 3 is probably sitting in your rice cooker or fridge right now, and it's hiding a danger that has absolutely no smell, no taste, and zero visual warning signs. We've all done it. You boil a massive pot of rice because it's convenient, you portion it out, and you pull a scoop to reheat over the next 3 or 4 days. It's the ultimate meal prep staple. But rice has a biological quirk that most people never learn about in nutrition class. It carries a specific type of bacteria called bacillus cereus. Now, don't panic. The initial cooking process easily wipes out the active bacteria, but it doesn't touch the spores. Spores are like microscopic survival pods. They're built to withstand boiling water, steam, and standard cooking temps. They sit quietly in your freshly made rice, completely dormant. The moment that rice starts cooling on the counter or even in the fridge, those spores sense the temperature drop and wake up. They multiply, and as they multiply, they secrete toxins. Here's the critical part. One of those toxins is heat stable. That means when you microwave your rice the next afternoon, you're killing the live bacteria, but the poison they already produced stays completely intact. It doesn't degrade. It just rides straight into your digestive system. Imagine a chemical spill in a warehouse. You shut off the pumps, but the barrels are already on the floor. Reheating stops the factory, but it doesn't clean the mess. So why does this matter for the pancreas? Because even when you don't get violently sick, those repeated low-level exposures keep your gut lining in a constant state of low-grade irritation. Researchers have spent the last decade mapping out the gut-pancreas connection. They're not separate systems. They share blood vessels, lymphatic routes, and inflammatory messengers. When your gut is quietly inflamed from foodborne toxins, that distress signal travels directly to the pancreas every single time. Over years, that background noise becomes a chronic condition. Take a quick look in your fridge right now. How many days has that leftover rice been sitting there? Drop the real number below. If it's past 24 hours, you've already crossed into unnecessary risk. The fix is straightforward, and it only takes a minute. The second you finish cooking, spread the rice out in a thin layer on a wide tray. More surface area equals faster cooling equals less time for those spores to wake up and multiply. Get it into the fridge within an hour, not 2, not 3. Consume it within a day. When you do reheat it, make sure it's piping hot all the way through, not just warm on top, and never reheat it. Eat half and put it back. Once it's been warmed, it's a one-time meal. These aren't extreme rules. They're just the kind of details that never make it onto food packaging. Now, let's move to number 4, the protein staple that almost every household relies on for quick lunches, and the real danger here comes down to a very common kitchen gadget we all trust. A little too much. You roast a batch of chicken thighs or bake some breasts, store them and pull them out the next day. You slap them on a plate, toss them in the microwave for 2 minutes, press a finger to the outside, feel the heat and dig in. Sounds normal, right? It's exactly what millions of people do, but microwaves don't cook food the way a conventional oven or stovetop does. They bounce energy around to agitate water molecules, creating friction-based heat. The problem? Food isn't uniform. A piece of chicken has dense muscle, fat pockets, bone, and varying moisture levels. That means the microwave creates uneven hot zones and hidden cold pockets. You can't see them. You can't feel them from the surface. The outside can be practically steaming while the center sits at a cozy, bacteria-friendly temperature, and poultry, even when cooked properly the first time, is highly susceptible to post-cooking contamination. A stray splash on the counter, a utensil, your hands' bacteria like Salmonella or Campylobacter can easily find their way onto the meat. Those microwave cold spots then act like tiny incubators instead of sterilizers. A full-blown infection from these bacteria isn't just an upset stomach. It's a full-system immune response that pulls your entire body into crisis mode: fever, cramping, severe digestive distress. And while your body is fighting that battle, your pancreas is dragged into the crossfire, flooded with inflammatory messengers it has to process. But here's what keeps me up at night as a clinician. It's not just the dramatic food poisoning episodes that cause long-term damage. It's the repeated subclinical doses, the ones that don't knock you out but keep your gut lining simmering in a low-grade inflammatory state. Those are the silent exposures that accumulate over years. Think about it. When you reheat chicken, do you actually check the thickest part with a thermometer, or do you just go by the outside temperature? That tiny gap between guessing and knowing is where risk hides. The solution is easier than you think. Skip the microwave for poultry whenever possible. Use your oven at around 350 F, cover it tightly with foil to trap steam, and give it 15 to 20 minutes. That gentle, even heat penetrates every layer uniformly. If you absolutely must use the microwave, cut the meat into small, even chunks first. Drop the power to medium, pause halfway to stir and rearrange, and let it sit covered for a couple of minutes after the timer stops so the residual heat can equalize. Or honestly, just eat it cold, shredded into a salad, wrapped in a tortilla, or tossed with veggies. No heat means no cold spots, means no bacterial survival zone. It's that simple. Now we're at number 5, and this one is particularly tricky because it pulls a double trick on your metabolism, hitting your pancreas from two completely different angles at once. You know the scenario. Sunday dinner featured a tray of roasted potatoes. Monday night, you scoop out a portion, toss it back into a hot pan or air fryer to get that crunch back, and enjoy it. Feels resourceful, right? But inside those reheated spuds, two separate chemical events are unfolding simultaneously. The first one involves acrylamide. You've probably seen it mentioned in food safety reports. It's a compound that forms when starchy foods are exposed to high heat, specifically above 250 F. That beautiful golden brown crust you love? That's the Maillard reaction, and acrylamide is an unavoidable byproduct of it. Here's the twist. When potatoes are cooked, cooled, and then subjected to high heat a second time, the surface moisture evaporates further, concentrating sugars and amino acids. That dry, concentrated layer becomes a chemical accelerator. Reheating doesn't just restore the crispiness. It actually creates a higher concentration of acrylamide than the original bake. Major cancer research boards classify it as a probable carcinogen because of how it interacts with cellular DNA. That's strike one. But strike two is where the metabolic stress really builds, when you cook potatoes and then cool them completely. A fascinating transformation occurs. A portion of the digestible starch rearranges itself into something called resistant starch. Think of it as a dietary superhero. It moves through your gut more slowly, feeds your good bacteria, and prevents sharp blood sugar spikes. It's genuinely protective, but the second you blast those cooled potatoes with high heat again, that resistant starch melts right back into regular, rapidly digestible starch. The protective benefit vanishes in under 2 minutes. Instead of a slow, steady glucose release, you get a sudden sugar surge, and who's on the hook to handle that surge? Your pancreas, specifically the cells responsible for insulin production. One reheated meal isn't going to wreck them, but doing it multiple times a week, month after month, forces those cells into repeated emergency response mode. Over time, that constant stress leads to cellular fatigue, reduced insulin sensitivity, and metabolic strain that sets the stage for larger systemic issues. And if you decide to pan-fry those reheated potatoes in oil, you're literally combining the oxidative risks from food 1 with the acrylamide and metabolic stress from food 5. It's a perfect storm in a single bowl. So how many times this week have you reheated potatoes? Leave the honest answer below. The fix is surprisingly delicious once you try it. Eat them cold. Cold roasted potatoes tossed with olive oil, a splash of vinegar, fresh herbs, and maybe some chickpeas make an incredible salad. You lock in the resistant starch, skip the acrylamide spike, and give your insulin-producing cells a break. If you need them warm, use gentle steam or the lowest microwave setting just to take the chill off. Warm, not hot. And under no circumstances should you ever refry a potato that's already been cooked. The first fry is a controlled chemical event. The second fry is a stress test your body didn't ask for. We've covered a lot, and I know it sounds like a lot to keep track of, but here's the most important thing I can tell you right now. If you've been reheating these foods for years, you haven't ruined anything. The human body is remarkably resilient. Chronic inflammation can settle down, cells regenerate daily. The patterns we just talked about aren't life sentences. They're just feedback loops waiting to be interrupted. I'm not asking you to panic. Panic doesn't change habits. I'm asking you to get specific. Tonight, when you open that fridge, make one intentional swap. Fried leftovers? Dry heat only? Greens? Keep them cold or cook fresh portions. Rice? Cool it fast, eat it within a day, reheat thoroughly once. Poultry? Oven or cold, no microwave guessing. Potatoes? Enjoy them chilled or gently warmed, never refried. Tiny shifts, repeated consistently, compound into real protection. Your pancreas has been running quietly in the background, managing your digestion, regulating your metabolism, never asking for credit. It's time we return the favor with a little kitchen awareness. If this conversation gave you even one useful takeaway, do me a quick favor. Think of someone in your life who meal preps, who hates wasting food, who reheats leftovers without thinking twice. Send them this video. Not tomorrow, today. A 2-minute watch could genuinely shift their long-term health trajectory. I'm glad you spent this time with me. Stay mindful, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.